Hello, welcome. Today we're going to be discussing some of the best practices to teach English language learners through thematic instruction. So, what is thematic instruction? Well, since content areas are interrelated, we should organize curriculum in that way as well, in themes. This helps students to see the big picture, and also, of course, it offers repeated vocabulary opportunities which results in deeper comprehension for students. So when they're hearing the same vocabulary about weather or precipitation or types of clouds through science, studying those clouds, through math, calculating precipitation, reading about the pupils' different weather experiences, that repeated vocabulary opportunity will help students to really get a deeper knowledge and keep it in their mind more than just for the final exam. So another few ideas about thematic units are that they're very helpful for ESL students because they connect information on the topic in different subjects. Another example I give here is that you could have Civil War math world problems, science connections, instead of having all the academic subjects covering different things, as usually happens in a classic educational environment. The authors Paraguay and Boyle wrote that theme-based collaborative projects create student interest, motivation, involvement, and practice. So, these students who are able to work together on these projects that are thematically based are benefiting from other students in the group, and that excitement and interest builds to hopefully create some deeper learning experiences. So why would we teach in thematic units? Why would we use them? Well, bilingual students will be able to integrate their language skills across the 4 domains: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So they'll be able to use those 4 skills over and over in different ways. Additionally, when we use thematic units and we have grouping opportunities for collaborative learning, these opportunities will support the BICS, or the basic interpersonal communicative skills, for those ELL students. So we know that those communicative skills need to be built, in a more casual environment. This is not, the more intense academic language, but, be able to build those conversational abilities for ELL students is super important. Of course, additionally, we'll have those opportunities for meaningful and exciting cross-curricular connections. A little bit of research which supports thematic instruction includes Education Week, which is online. They offer examples of how to integrate the Common Core standards into a thematic unit. For example, a teacher on the website wrote about how she teaches both language arts and social studies. And instead of just, teaching a book in language arts and a piece of history in social studies, she will unite the 2 subjects under one topic, such as courage. And she included the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and then also some, speeches from the past and articles and, video clips instead of just studying the book. So those opportunities for cross-curricular connections are numerous and wonderful. Another piece of research by Kettner in 2016 advises teachers to come up with an essential question for the unit and then use backwards design to plan the activities and the related learning targets. So of course, backward design provides that teachers need to, prepare the lessons based on what those learning objectives are, and basically, start backwards from what's the final assessment going to look like? What are the performance assessments going to look like? And those need to, all relate back to the learning targets. Here's a specific example for a 5th grade weather unit. So students would be able to read articles about the weather, and they might be able to, find examples of weather articles from people who are going through it in different regions of the U.S. such as, in Michigan, there's snow in April, and in Florida, there is a heat wave, and in California, there hasn't been any rain in weeks. So looking up, local newspaper articles about weather, that would be a good, search skill for students, and maybe they would be assigned for assigned to a certain region of the country, and then within that a group, they could have a collaborative learning group there, finding articles about a state within that region, so they could kind of be in charge of narrowing that down and, doing that research on their own. Another thing, they could write a script for a weather report in an assigned city. So let's say they chose Detroit, Michigan, so they could, pretend that they are the, weatherman or weatherwoman for that city, and write the script. And also they could even, record it using iPads or other, recording technology that they have. In science, they might be studying clouds and precipitation types, the different names of clouds, what causes precipitation, that weather cycle. In math, they could be calculating the mean, median, mode, and range of temperature in different cities across the U.S. Of course, mean, median, mode, and range are, repeated throughout, the first semester or so of 5th grade. So this would be a good way to incorporate those temperatures in those regions and cities that were being studied. Another example of cross-curricular connections through thematic units could be, in this example I wrote up about social studies and English language arts. So if students were assigned to read the nonfiction texts of the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, which is written in first-hand perspective by the former slave, maybe they would be also writing diary entries for the chapters that track Frederick's thoughts, or maybe the skill in English language arts at the time is paraphrasing skills or using quotation marks, or you could even, work on answering specific questions about the chapter using, sticky notes or writing questions as they go. A cross-curricular connection would be maybe they are studying the historical context from which slavery was born in the U.S., and that would be, of course, a social studies component. Other ideas for the same idea, the same topic would be maybe they are acting out the main events that led up to the Civil War. Maybe students would write a news story that explains the Underground Railroad to people in the North, and another story to explain it to people in the South. So what would the different perspective be if the author was, living in the North, explaining the Underground Railroad, and, people in the South, especially slave owners, would have a much different perspective. That could be a really good activity to write about. You could also look up online or have students sing recordings, or find recordings of the slave spiritual songs. That would be a great way to incorporate the different learning styles of students, whether they're more visual, maybe they are more musical, etc. So those are the references you can look up to learn more about the interdisciplinary opportunities in Education Week, or the Kettner references from the Maine Department of Education. So I hope that you found this presentation very helpful. The next step is going to be on your worksheet that you have in front of you. You're going to be brainstorming with your table to talk through ideas of how could you design a thematic unit to support bilingual learners. A couple suggestions I gave were, what could you do to, talk about different subjects? How would you cover Native Americans, or possibly, World War II? How could you bring up World War II and tie it into your math standards and into your English language arts standards, into science? Some of this takes a bit of creativity to think, how can I get it into science? How does that go with it? But hopefully at your table you'll be able to brainstorm some ideas together, and in about 10 minutes we're going to be able to share those ideas out with the group. And at that time we'd love to have you jot down any notes, things that you could use in your own classroom, and be able to share those ideas together. So thank you so much, and go ahead and get with your group now. We'll pull back together in about 10 minutes. Thank you.